Hello, all you textual deviants, and welcome to another special emergency edition of Texting. I'm Mark Will in Taipei.
And I'm a hero of our time in St. Petersburg.
All right, well, today we're talking about travel. We both recently took some trips. Tomek took a trip to the Caucasus Mountains, and I took a short trip to Bangkok. So we're going to discuss those trips for what it's worth. Before we do that, though, I want to just briefly talk about the meaning of travel. Like, what does travel signify in this era of genocide and turmoil? I mean, I guess you could say there's always something going on somewhere that's horrible. But do we need to reflect on this? Do we need to apologize for, taking pleasure trips when there's so much horror and suffering in the world? Or should we just assume that it's our right to enjoy ourselves and think nothing of it? Your thoughts?
Well, if anything, I think it's something to be proud of because it's a kind of defiance and an insistence on art, on the importance of discovery, so that I just think it's like, and also it's not necessarily like a capitalistic venture. So you're kind of insisting on the place of exploration in a time where maybe somebody wants to spend all their money on either their future or their pension or their Campbell soup cans in their bunker. So this is like saying, no, I'm going to live now, and I'm going to love my fellow neighbor enough that I want to see what their world is about. I mean, it's very selfless in a way. I mean, obviously there's many different ways to travel, but if you're traveling for an appreciation of something else, something outside of you, then I think that's noble.
But
But
it
I don't
is a
really agree
kind
with
of,
anything I just said. Sorry.
yeah, I mean, I don't agree or disagree, but I was just thinking, it is a kind of luxury, right? Like you have to have the funds to do it. You have to have the time, the leisure to do it. And often I feel like I'm just consuming, I'm consuming experiences. I'm consuming cultural touchstones or something like that. Am I overthinking it? Should I just enjoy and forget about all this other nonsense?
Again, it's like, what, but if you're consuming uh a culture that doesn't get much shine, you know,
Mm-hmm.
or so actually you're paying tribute and you're resisting. Yeah, like if I go to the Caucasus and I'm eating Circassian cuisine, which is from a nomad people who experienced a Stalinist genocide, I think that's pretty cool. It's like affirming traditions that are under threat. So
Do they
again, I
do?
just think it's
But
the
do
nature of your
we can?
travel, right?
Well, we can say that. We can say, oh yes, we're supporting the local economy. We're showing appreciation to this native culture, but I wonder, do the people there see it that way, or do they say, "Oh, here comes another fucking white guy"?
It depends where you're spending the money. I think that's what a lot of it comes down to, if you are supporting cool people doing good things wherever they are, I think that's valid. And anyway, I don't know how moralistic we should get about it. I don't think, obviously, there's travel is absolutely a way of building up tolerance and respect and love between diverse peoples and diverse systems of thought. I mean, the ignorant assholes are typically the ones who've done the least amount of traveling. So yeah, I mean, I think the basic
I don't.
principles of travel,
I
you
don't
know.
disagree with that. I don't disagree with that. But yeah, maybe that's enough chit chat. Let's get into the trips. We'll start with you, sir. Um, for those that are merely listening and not watching on YouTube or some other video platform, we have a slide of a map, and it's a map of the Caucasus region. And why don't you tell us what we're looking at? I see Pyatigorsk.
Yeah.
Is that where you went?
Yeah, so I will first explain that I was in the North Caucasus, which is the part that's in the Russian Federation. You could see more of the Caucasus in Georgia and I think further down as well.
Mm-hmm.
And would like to give a little bit of context for this area and kind of its position in Russia. So you may know Sochi, yeah? Do you know a
Where
little bit about Sochi?
the Winter Olympics were held.
Exactly, and you can see that in the map in the bottom left. Well,
Okay,
bottom
yes.
left of Russia, right?
On the Black Sea coast.
Yeah, so that's for years. And again, I'm not an expert on anything I'm going to say today. I'm
Mm-hmm.
very much like last minute researching to supplement my everyman knowledge. But Sochi for the last at least 50 years has been the kind of resort spot for all of Russia, right? So and during the Cold War, when there's an Iron Curtain and Russians wanted to go get their beach experience and their warm weather experience, Sochi was the spot. Like to the point where I've never been to Sochi and I've kind of avoided it because it's such a kind of cliche spot, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Which again, I've done that before with things and been surprised. Like I avoided Thailand for a while, speaking of your destination coming on later, and then I ended up
Mm-hmm.
loving it. So I'm sure that I would like Sochi, but yeah, it's very touristy. That's my point. And this whole region that we're looking at became popular in the 19th century, before the revolution, among the nobles. Once a series of hot springs were discovered in the area, so obviously Russia is generally a very cold country. This is your ideal place to have some warm weather. I was in t-shirts, whereas in St. Petersburg it was around 0 that week. So this was about 3 weeks ago. Um, and so yeah, the one of the primary things you'll notice is the difference in climate, and then it's also home to a lot of these famous mineral waters. So
Mm-hmm.
you can see on the map a place called Mineralne Vody, which means mineral water. That's
Yes.
where you can find the local airport for the region, and that's where we flew into. So we flew into Mineralne Vody, nonstop from St. Petersburg, and we took a
How long
taxi,
was that flight?
4 hours.
Okay.
Yeah, and then
That's how long my flight was too. Interesting.
okay, nice, yeah, and took a taxi from Mineralne Vody to Kislovodsk, where our first accommodation was. Kislovodsk means sour waters, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
um, and that took about maybe 45 minutes. So
Okay.
the other place is just to complete my route. From there, we went back up to Pyatigorsk. Pyat means like five, like Pyat, and Gore is
Mm-hmm.
like hills, so it's like five mountains.
Okay.
Because the area is surrounded by a mountainous region. And from there, we went towards Mount Elbrus. We didn't actually ascend Mount Elbrus, but we were very close to where that arrow is pointing, so very close to the Georgia border. And Mount Elbrus is the highest mountain in Europe. From there, we went back to Pyatigorsk and back to Mineralne Vody. So, as you can see, Dagestan is not far from there. Dagestan was in the news. I don't know if you saw this, but recently after Israel and Palestine kicked off, there was a massive protest slash
Yes,
uprising in Dagestan.
I knew that sounded familiar when I was looking at the map. I was thinking Dagestan. I just heard about that recently. That's where they attacked the flight from Israel, right? Like
Allegedly
they
from Israel. Yeah, I mean, the whole thing was pretty cringe, to be honest, because it was kind of a bunch. I mean, I got mad love from my Muslim brethren, but this wasn't necessarily the creme de la creme of Muslim society. And you did have kind of a lot of Allah Akbar shouting and not the yeah, not the most refined behavior. I wasn't a big fan of that action.
is
Uh
Dagestan a primarily Muslim region or
yes, yes.
okay, okay.
And you probably know the most famous UFC fighter of all time.
I don't.
I'm I'm tripping on his name right now. I can't believe I'm forgetting this, but Habib, yeah? Have you heard of this guy,
Mm,
Habib?
no, no.
Okay, Habib Nurmagomedov. Anyone who follows UFC knows him because he's like undefeated, and he's from that region. And a lot
Okay.
of the best fighters in the world are from that region. Like, there's funny videos online of them like wrestling bears, and they're hardcore. Right next to that, you can see Chechnya, which again is in
Right,
Russia, right? And
right.
you see Grozny, which is the capital of Chechnya.
Which
I
Putin
almost went
bombed the
to.
shit out of, right?
I guess so. Yeah, yeah. But again, Chechens are famous for being brutal soldiers. They're definitely involved in the Ukraine conflict, and the leader is always saying some crazy shit, like just bloodthirsty motherfucker.
I think this is the region where Tolstoy's Haji Murat is set. I
Most
think
likely,
it's I
yes.
think it's around there. Oh, very interesting. Now, did you get in touch with your Caucasian white man roots
To be
as you
honest,
went to this region?
you may know the etymology situation better. I'm confused about what the relationship is between like people like me identifying as Caucasian males and then the whole idea of like the Caucasus and the Caucasian region. Do you
Well, that's
know?
well the I mean that's the origin of the word as far as I know. Like Caucasian, the Caucasian people are thought to be originally from the region around the Caucasus Mountains. Now, you used another word that's interesting, Circassian, right? Um, I didn't know that that was what synonymous with Caucasian, or at
No, I
least
don't think it is. I don't think it is.
it.
I'm gonna bring it up later. I think
Okay, okay,
that's a particular ethnic minority group in the region.
but but interestingly, Yukio Mishima, the Japanese author, used that term to refer to white people or European people or Caucasian people, and Mishima will come up in my segment as well. So I'm
Okay,
noticing
interesting.
a lot of connections already. But
I
we'll
still don't
explore the.
understand though, like how. So what do you mean? I mean, because a lot of people identify as Caucasian. I mean, it's like the umbrella term for white people, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So what is
well,
the connection with this region? I don't get it. Like, what we're all supposed to come from there? Like,
that I
I thought we all
assume
come from
so.
Africa.
Well, yeah, but the Caucasian people ended up after migrating from Africa, they ended up here and were bleached out, I guess. I mean, I don't
So with the
I'm not a
so the Caucasians then became what? Became Italians, became French, became became everything.
well, I mean, they're I assume they're Indo-European and they went all over. The Indo-Europeans went everywhere from India to the British Isles. So
But this is the tribe that everything comes from, yeah? That's according
I I,
to
I don't know.
famed archaeologist Mark Will.
I think that's the case, but is it factual or has that theory become outdated. I don't know about that, but I think that's the etymology. I mean, the Caucasus Mountains, that's also where Prometheus was uh, chained up after stealing fire and giving it to humanity.
Interesting.
So I wonder exactly where that would have been. Like, what mountain peak was he chained up on? We should look into that. But let's keep moving here. So
Okay,
that's
let me
the
just say a
map.
couple tiny other
Mm-hmm.
little interesting tidbits. Hopefully, we won't spend as much time, obviously, on other parts of the slide, but the geography is so interesting. So Georgia is just below, as you can see, and Tbilisi has undergone like a massive transformation in the last 2 years since the war. That's probably the number one spot where you could argue well-to-do Russian males between 20 and 30 escaped to. So
Mm-hmm.
you've got a lot,
Because
and
they're
people,
draft dodgers. They don't want to get drafted into the
right,
army.
right, or people that
Okay.
just like kind of freaked out about the whole war and just wanted to be away from it.
Right.
Um, and Georgia traditionally is very hospitable people, with amazing food, and it's kind of looked at as like the Italy for Russian people, like what Italy might be for Europeans. So you get your warm climate, delicious food, friendly people, but it's had a huge effect on property prices, and and Georgians aren't big fans of the Russian government, although they're still, I think, generally friendly to the Russians that have come in, and maybe it's helped some people to some extent with the economy. But either way, I just wanted to mention how the Russian influx of people that have come in has been quite interesting. And
Wasn't Stalin from Georgia?
yes, that's
That's
one
what I
of Georgia's
thought.
claim to fame.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, have you been there? You haven't been there, right?
No, I really like to though, and Georgian
I would
food
like
is
to as
everywhere in
well.
Russia. Georgian food
Mm-hmm.
is like Indian food for England. Like it's like
Mm-hmm.
better than the local food, so it kind of becomes the local food.
Hmm. I
Yeah,
really look forward to trying that when I visit you in St. Petersburg during Chinese New Year. That's
assuming all
happening.
goes well. Yes, looking forward to that.